In today's video, we are going to take a perfectly good bass tone that sounds like this, and turn it into a very distorted, but better bass tone that sounds like this. Hello and welcome, my name is Owen-Flood and welcome to the channel. I teach audio, mixing and mastering, recording, that sort of thing here on YouTube, so if that sounds like your cup of tea, please do subscribe. I would love to have you here. This is going to be all about using Saturn II by Fabfilter to make very distorted bass tones. It's a mainstay on my mixes. Honestly, it's almost without fail that Saturn II ends up on my bass tones. So I figured it's about time that I make a video showing it off and my process for doing that. So let's just get right into it. We got our bass tone here. I'll turn it off. There's a whole bunch of other processing, but it's not relevant to the video right now. I'll turn it all off so you can hear what's going on, just raw. We'll do that at least. And then I'll turn everything back on other than Saturn II. So you can hear it's just got tighter, a little more defined. There is some more grit there, but it sounds nothing like this. Like that's a very modern, like aggressive bass tone. It's a statement. It's more distorted than most people would go, I think. But in this song, again, with like this context, I think it just fits perfectly in that pocket between the guitars. It kind of ties the guitars together and then also gives like the kick, the room it needs, gels with the snare, nice. Like one more time. You actually can't tell that it's so crazy distorted when it's mixed in there. So that's kind of the point of this video. It's if you want to go really far with your bass, here's how you do it. I'm going to take this off. I'm just going to make it inactive. And I've got Saturn II here again, but we're just factory defaults. So I'm just going to go from scratch here and show you my general approach. And it's not going to take long. You'll enjoy it. And then I'll give you a little bonus tip at the end to help you out, just to take it a little bit further. First thing I do is I usually split it into 3 bands, and then I have to kind of play and find where I want these bands to be. So we're going to start with around 150, and then let's see, I'll go down to 1K with this to start. And we can always tweak it. And if you're not familiar, what these bands are doing is essentially letting us split the signal into different frequency bands where we can then distort and modify the tonal characteristics and dynamic characteristics of these bands individually. So to show you what I mean, I've created these bands, but it should more or less sound the same. It's maybe a hair dirtier because there's some drive just by default on this plugin for each band. But as you click through the bands, the plugin kind of shifts around to those bands parameters, and then we can solo those bands individually. So to really show you what these bands are doing, if I solo this low band here, that is everything up to 148 hertz. So if I then click play, right, you only hear there. And if I go into here, which is 148 hertz up to 1000 hertz, there you go, right? So hopefully that makes sense. And now we can process them individually. And why we want to do this is because generally when we're distorting something, we don't necessarily want the low end to get distorted too, because that sounds different. There's a reason there's a lot more distorted guitars than there is distorted basses happening in the world. And that's because guitar amps are distorting higher frequencies, and that seems to sound more pleasing. So I'm going to grab my middle band where I want the majority of my distortion to be, and I'm just going to increase that. And you'll see that I might make some other tweaks as we go here. Okay, so it got a little more aggressive, but definitely not anywhere near where we were headed. I like it, but I wanted this to be kind of like over the top. So here's the little secret. You click this warm tape button and you have now just found so many different distortion models inside of Saturn. There's tons. There's like all these tube saturations that all sound different, all these tape ones, amp saturation, transformers, effects. Essentially, it goes from like subtle all the way to really intense with each. But my dirty little secret is that when I'm going for this kind of bass tone, I'm only ever using 2. It's either broken tube or it is old tape. So let's start with old tape and see how that sounds. So that sounds pretty good. That's probably what we did use on the mix. Let's try broken tube. cool in a different way. Right now, old tape is singing to me, so I'm going to stick with that, dial that in somewhere. Okay, I like that, but now I'm going to mess with my band parameters to see if expanding that or narrowing that helps things. So I did open it up a little bit on the top end because now the pick attack is getting distorted as well and becoming more of like a sound, which is nice. Listen for that. So that really comes dun, 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 dun. So that's going to help like lock it in with my drum sound a lot. And then I don't think I'm going to want to go lower, but we'll just do it for this experiment. It just gets flubby and lame sounding down there to me. So somewhere up here. A lot of definition there, but not enough warmth on the bottom end. So I'm going to like kind of soften the slope so that we can probably sneak this down further. Okay. So I'm digging that, but our low end seems kind of missing. I think we can get more intense there. So I just click over to the low band, and now I can do more saturation there, or I can do less saturation there, or I can boost the volume, or there's one little trick here. There's the dynamics filter as well. Those can all play a pretty big role. Here we go. So I did dig actually adding some drive there, but again, this is warm tape. It's not the, what was this one called? Old tape. So it's like way less intense. And now I'm going to try messing with my dynamics knob, which can be really dramatic. Cool. So I really dig that. You can hear the low end kind of become this like sausage. It's just like all dynamics are squeezed out. It's just, and that's giving it almost like a sub-synth layer to the song. And then finally, we've got that top band, which I usually actually leave alone if I'm honest, but just to be fun, we're gonna play with it. I might actually kind of dig that being up a little bit. And there's this full like EQ band and every band as well, so we can kind of shape those curves. Too much. So that kind of gave just like a little more clarity to that upper mid-range. I dug that. And what I've been doing lately, and only because I just noticed it's there, honestly, is been flicking this high quality option to good. There's also superb, which, you know, in theory is better. But honestly, like, I don't notice anything bad with it being off. We're distorting things, so like, how bad could it make it sound if there's any aliasing? But good is just kind of where I've been going. My computer can handle it, and I don't want to risk any latency stuff, so I've just been rocking that. And that kind of gives us this. Which sounds pretty good. So let's just compare our settings, see how I landed, because we were kind of winging that. I mixed this song a long time ago. So I have my two instances. The left one is my original one that I actually used in the real mix of the released version of the song. Song's called Explosions by Darrian Gerard, by the way. Do check her out. She's a great pop punk artist and records all her own stuff as well, which is really cool. All right, and then on the right is my new one. So let's click on the left band for both. Okay, so ended up on the same saturation. I went heavier on the dynamics on my new one and harder on the drive. So I like distortion even more, it seems. Let's click on the middle band for each. And yep, old tapes where I landed for both. I went Further on the dynamics on the last one, though, which is curious, but very close on the drive, just a little tiny bit more. Didn't do any of the EQ stuff. And generally, I actually don't, but I liked what happened this time, so I think I would do that again. Looks like I also used the good there. And then the top, tiny bit of drive, that's only changed there. This one, the default drive, but I boosted this a bit more. So pretty close results, honestly. If we want to A/B, we could do that. Just here's the bass with the original Saturn. And here is the new Saturn II Fabfilter bass. On its own, I like the original one. So that leads me to think that this middle band dynamics being pushed is something we want. And back. Still just doesn't sound as intense to me, but it's really close. So that's my entire mindset behind distorting bass, is essentially splitting it into a few bands. I like to do it just in a plugin like this rather than creating like a duplicate bass track, which some people do. It's not wrong. It's just my preferred workflow. Simple, and I like it. Now, little bonus tip. I tend to want to do this again. So if we look at our bus here, we'll just roll with our original Saturn II Fabfilter, and we go through our processing up top. We have another one, but I just did this no multiband and just drive to taste. And I stuck with warm tapes, really good sounding algorithm, whatever that is. And it's like super subtle, but I find that giving like a blanket processing across the entire frequency band kind of ties it back into feeling more like it was recorded that way. Maybe I'm crazy, but it is just, I like that, and it's something I do pretty often as well. I do this initial kind of split, more surgical processing, and then eventually I'm like, you know what, we just got to bring the whole thing, give it a little harmonic saturation overall, and it kind of gives it some glue vibe. So hope you enjoyed that. If you want some more distortion or other mixing videos, I got another one coming up for you right here and here. And there is a free mixing workshop, kind of a entire song thing done by this self-recording band podcast by my co-host, Benedict Hein. So check that out at the link down below in the description of this video as well. See you in the next one. Adios.